Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Bex here today to talk about 10 books that I really want to read in 2020. I've done a few videos like this in the past. I believe I did an 8 for 2018 and a 9 for 2019. So 10 for 2020 seems right, and I'll probably be doing 10 from here on out as well. But this stack of 10 books that I have to share with you are books that have just been calling to me on my TBR bookcase here, and I just haven't had the chance to get to them yet, so I really would like to try and prioritize them next year. These aren't necessarily guaranteed 5-star reads, they're just books that I really hope I do like. I mean, some of the books that I read in 2019 and I'm still currently reading are DNFs or might be a DNF. I'm giving it one last shot, guys. So hopefully all of these books will be something I'll enjoy, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. But they're calling to me right now, so I wanted to share them with you. The first book is calling to me because it's the final book in a trilogy, and that is The Midnight Star by Marie Lu. I read the first 2 books in the Young Elite series this year after being kind of hesitant to pick it up for a long time. It had been sent to me by Penguin way back in the day, and I just hadn't found the time to read it and the real drive to read it, and then I finally did during the Femme Fatale readathon. I was actually really impressed. Since this is the 3rd book, I can't say too much, but it is a young adult fantasy series set in a world where there are people called young elites who basically have superpowers or magical powers, and they're certain societies kind of shun them, other societies really appreciate them, and it's about the battle between good and evil, because, you know, what else should a fantasy book be about other than the battle against good versus evil? The next one is one that everybody will probably recognize, and that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was one I was trying to get to in 2019 and it just didn't quite work out, but I read Daisy Jones and the Six by the same author earlier this year, and I really liked it, and the general consensus seems to be that 7 Husbands is a bit better, so I was really happy that I started with Daisy Jones because that book was a really good reading experience for me, so I'm hoping this one is just a tad bit better. If you have somehow forgotten what this book is about, Evelyn Hugo is a movie star from old Hollywood, like the 1950s, and it's now present day, and she's decided to share her story. So she chooses this journalist, this unknown journalist, to tell her story and talk about her 7 husbands and talk about old Hollywood and how bad it was and how much she had to, you know, fight to get what she wanted. This book has just, so many people love this book. I mean, a few people didn't like it, but I feel like 90% of the time when somebody talks about this book, they give it 4 stars or usually 5. So I'm very excited to finally get to this one and see if I love it as much as everyone else does. Number 3 is a hunker, and it is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This is a book that has been on my shelves for years. I believe it was Rincey from Rincey Reads back in the day who read this book. It was one of the big books that she read for the year. I think she usually reads a big book in August. This might have been that book, or it could have just, you know, been something she read that year. And I remember her talking very highly of it, and it kind of surprised me because this is a American frontier western like epic story, and it's just not something that I would usually associate with Rincey or with myself really, but it made me kind of curious because I've never read a book like that before, and I guess if I'm going to read a book like that, I might as well commit. This thing is, I don't know, 800 something pages, so yeah, like 800 pages. This would definitely count towards a big book goal if I could finish this next year. I'm hoping that I like it, obviously. It's been sitting on my shelf for so long that the spine has actually faded in comparison to the cover. So it's probably time to read this. Other than it being an epic story with, you know, heroes and villains and survival and all that, I don't really know many of the details. It's an epic frontier story. So let me read it and find out if I like that kind of genre. Then I have something in a completely different genre, and that is The Boy Most Likely To by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This is YA contemporary romance. very different from the last book. This is actually a companion novel to My Life Next Door, which is about a girl who falls in love with the boy next door. And so this book follows two characters that were side characters in the first book. And I actually really liked both of them as characters. They were some of the more memorable characters from that book, so I think this was a really good choice on Huntley Fitzpatrick's part if she really wanted to continue the story, to choose those characters to continue to tell the story with. My Life Next Door was a perfect summer read. I sat outside in the sun with my drink and read the book in a fairly short amount of time just because it was such a good read, but it was also kind of hard-hitting. So I'm hoping for the same thing with this one. If you watched my most recent book haul, you would have already seen this book. This is Rough Magic, Riding the World's Loneliest Horse Race by Laura Pryor Palmer. This book is nonfiction. It's a memoir, I would say, because it's about Laura's time running the Mongol Derby, which is generally considered to be the longest, hardest horse race in the world. And it's noteworthy for her because she was the youngest person ever to finish the race and the first woman to ever win. So this is going to be an epic story. It was Olive from a book Olive who originally mentioned this book and kind of brought it to my attention. And after she said how much she really enjoyed it, I had to go pick it up. Plus, like, this cover is gorgeous. I love this. It looks so good on my bookshelf. This is also another very large book, and it's And the Band Played On by Randy Schultz. This is Politics, People, and the AIDS Epidemic. Sorry about my ring light shining off the cover there. This is sort of the definitive book on the AIDS epidemic and how governments ignored the problem and it became so big. This is a very large view at everything, so it touches on a lot of the topics. I mean, it should go pretty in depth because it's so large, but from what I understand, it does focus on like the government's and kind of the big picture, the overarching picture, so it doesn't necessarily follow specific people's experience. I mean, there could be that in there, but it definitely seems like it's more of an overarching view of everything that was going on. So I really would like to get to this book this year to sort of understand the AIDS crisis, just because I was either not born or very young when it was still going on, but it's something that is still very relevant today. So I want to read this to get a much better understanding of everything that did happen. This one is another recent haul of mine. It is Dead Mountain, The Untold Story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident by Donnie Eicher. This is another nonfiction book that follows the story of a group of hikers, mountaineers, who died in the Russian Ural Mountains in 1959. But when they were found, the scene that they were found in was very weird. Like, mysterious stuff was just off. And so at the time, they didn't really have the technology to really understand what happened, or at least the know-how. And it seems like Donnie Eicher takes our modern day view and goes back and studies this incident to try and figure out what exactly happened and what killed these very experienced hikers. Then I have Containment by Hank Parker. This is a fiction book that follows a story of bioterrorism. So we have a government-employed epidemiologist and a CIA agent working together to try and track down this terrorist group that has unleashed this tick-borne illness in the United States. I've never heard anybody talk about this book before. It was just something that caught my eye, and I'm hoping it's a thrilling, intense read. And this is something that if I enjoy, I think my sister would really like, because she's really interested in the topic of bioterrorism from an academic standpoint. So if I really like this, I think she would really like it too. So I want to check this out, and hopefully it'll really pull me in and be like an intense thriller that I want it to be. My second to last book is Blood at the Root, A Racial Cleansing in America by Patrick Phillips. This was a book that I recently mentioned for my nonfiction November TBR. This was the book that I didn't get to that I really want to get to. So I figured I should include it in my 10 books for 2020. This book is going to focus on a few different incidences of racial cleansing in America, but it seems like it's mostly going to focus on a particular incident that happened in a county in Georgia in the early 1900s. There was 3 black men that were accused of raping and murdering a white girl, and this caused a white mob to come into the county and chase out all of the Black residents. This white mob took over their land, their animals and everything, and basically kept the county completely white until the 1990s. This is going to be a very intense book, but it's something that I do want to learn more about. My last book that I would definitely like to get to in 2020 is Lost in Shangri-La, a true story of survival, adventure, and the most incredible rescue mission of World War II by Mitchell Zuckoff. This book has been on my TBR shelf for years. It's been on my Goodreads want to read list since 2011, I'm pretty sure, which is when I joined Goodreads. I didn't own this book since then, but I did eventually find it at a book sale, at a library book sale, I believe, and so I have acquired it, but it's still been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. But I'm feeling it, like it's gonna happen. I wanna read it in the next year. This, if you couldn't tell from the title, is another nonfiction book that talks about a plane that was carrying American servicemen and women during World War II. It was flying over Dutch New Guinea, I believe that's what they were calling it, you know, at the time, I guess, to kind of go over Shangri-La, what they sort of call Shangri-La at the time. And the plane crashed, and there was 3 survivors, I believe, and it's about the 3 survivors who were badly injured and obviously traumatized, surviving, and also the people that went to try and rescue them because they're in this very remote area. This sounds very intense, and I'm honestly a little surprised that it hasn't been made into a movie. At least as far as I know, there's no movie about this. If there is, let me know in the comments below. But I'm hoping that after all of this time of it being on my Goodreads want to read list and then also being on my physical TBR, that it's really good. Those are the 10 books that I would like to read in 2020. If you have read any of these books, definitely share with me what you thought of them down below. If there's one you think I should get to first, you can definitely sort of push me in a certain direction. I'm excited to read all of them, so if there's one that you really think you should pick up next, or you really want me to review or whatever, let me know. As always, all of our links are in the down bar. You can go check those out if you feel so inclined. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you later.